When I was 10, my aunt decided to take my cousin and me on a trip. We stayed in a beautiful hotel for 3 days and 2 nights, a place that seemed to be taken right out of a storybook. The building was grand, with tall windows that looked out onto a sprawling garden, and the lobby was adorned with elegant chandeliers. The rooms were spacious, the beds were soft, and everything felt perfect. It was the kind of place that promised a peaceful escape, and I thought it would be the best vacation of my life. On the first night, everything seemed to go according to plan. We settled into our room, unpacked, and then went for a quiet dinner in the hotel's restaurant. The atmosphere was calm, and there was something comforting about the soft hum of distant conversations and clinking silverware. After dinner, we went to bed early as we planned to explore the surroundings the next day. The room was cozy, with its soft, inviting bed and faint scent of lavender in the air. But as I took my bath that evening, something didn't feel right. The water was warm, the bathroom light was dim, yet there was a strange sense of unease that crept into the air. The silence felt suffocating, pressing in on me from all sides. I kept my eyes shut the entire time, unwilling to open them and face whatever strange feeling lingered in the room. It was as though the world outside that small space didn't exist. I quickly finished up, got dressed, and returned to the room, trying to dismiss the feeling as just nerves. The first night passed without incident, though I found it hard to fall asleep. My mind kept racing, wondering what that odd feeling in the bathroom had been about. But as I lay in the comfort of my bed, I convinced myself that it was just the unfamiliarity of the place. The night ended uneventfully, and I woke up the next morning feeling slightly more at ease. The second night, however, was different. I had just started drifting into that in-between state, where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. The room was silent, and I could feel the warmth of the bed enveloping me. My cousin was beside me, snoring softly, and my aunt was fast asleep in the bed across the room. I began to relax, closing my eyes and sinking deeper into the sheets. But then, just as I was about to fall into a peaceful slumber, I heard it. At first, it was so faint that I almost dismissed it. A soft, almost imperceptible sound, like the sound of nails dragging against fabric. The noise was so quiet that I thought it might have been a figment of my imagination. But then it came again, closer, sharper. The sound was unmistakable, as if someone was gently but deliberately scraping their nails against the edge of the fabric. The noise was so near that it felt like it was coming from just next to me. My eyes shot open, my heart racing in my chest. I lay there frozen, listening intently for any sign of movement. The room was dark, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the curtains. I looked over at my aunt, who was still sound asleep in her bed, undisturbed. My cousin was also fast asleep, his breathing slow and steady. I tried to convince myself that it was just the house settling, the sound of the building's old walls creaking in the night. But then the noise came again. This time, it was louder, more deliberate. The sound of nails scraping across fabric echoed in the room, and I could feel my pulse quickening. I sat up slowly, scanning the darkness, trying to make sense of what was happening. But there was nothing. No movement, no figure standing in the shadows, just the quiet, oppressive silence of the night. I tried to lie back down, to shake off the fear and get some rest. But the moment I relaxed, the noise returned, sharp and distinct. My body went rigid with fear, and I bolted upright again, my eyes darting around the room. My cousin and aunt remained oblivious to the noise, their peaceful slumbers untouched by the strange sound that seemed to be coming from all around me. I was alone in my fear, unsure of what was happening. Sleep became impossible. The fear that had been lingering at the edges of my mind now consumed me. I clutched my duvet tightly, trying to calm my trembling hands. I closed my eyes, telling myself it was all just my imagination, but every time I tried to relax, the noise would start again, scraping, dragging, drawing nearer, and then, as I lay there, Wide awake with my heart hammering in my chest, I heard it. The sound wasn't coming from the room. It wasn't coming from the walls or the floor or even the bed. It was coming from beneath my head. It was a slow, deliberate scraping sound, like nails dragging across the fabric of my pillow. The noise was so close that it felt as though something was just inches away from my ear, moving in the dark with purpose. I froze. My breath caught in my throat as the sound continued, the long nails dragging slowly over the surface of the pillow. My body tensed in terror, unable to move. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing down on me, each moment stretching on forever. It felt as though I was trapped in that moment, unable to escape from the horrible sound. Without thinking, I leapt out of bed and ran to my aunt, who was still sleeping soundly. I shook her awake, trying to find some comfort in her presence. But sleep was elusive. The night dragged on, and I lay there, eyes wide open, listening to the soft rustle of the bed linens and the slow ticking of the clock in the corner. I couldn't sleep. Not a single moment of rest came until the first light of dawn seeped through the curtains. The next morning, my aunt glanced at me with a look of concern. I could tell she had noticed something was wrong. My mind raced for an explanation. The truth was still fresh in my head. The slow, deliberate scraping sound, the eerie presence lurking just beneath my pillow, but I knew she wouldn't believe me. I was just a child, and adults always dismissed these things as imagination or a bad dream. So, I forced myself to stay calm and told her I had a nightmare. It was easier that way. If I admitted what I really experienced, she might have laughed it off or reassured me that it was nothing. But I knew it wasn't nothing, even as I sat there in the bright morning light, with the scent of breakfast filling the air and the warmth of a new day settling in. The fear still clung to me. The memory of that night would never fade. Even now, years later, I don't understand what happened that night. The memory still lingers, a shadow in the back of my mind that refuses to fade. I've left that hotel behind, but the fear remains, and I will never forget the feeling of someone, watching me from just beneath my pillow. To this day, it has been 16 years since that happened, but whenever I sleep on my side, I keep one hand beneath the pillow, as though I can somehow protect myself from experiencing it again.
My sister is my perfect travel companion. We have a lot in common. Our tastes in food are almost identical, and we both have a deep love for adventure. Though our careers are entirely different and we live in separate cities, we make it a point to travel together every year. It has become a tradition, something we both look forward to, a constant in our ever-changing lives. Throughout our travels, we have stayed in all kinds of hotels, some luxurious, some terrible, and others uniquely themed or full of character. But the experience I am about to share is one that my sister and I will never forget. On this particular trip, we had chosen a quiet destination, hoping for a relaxing getaway. After a long journey, we finally arrived at our hotel, a place that, at first glance, seemed charming in an old-fashioned way. The building stood tall against the fading evening light, its vintage architecture hinting at a rich history. The hotel was old but well-maintained, a remnant of a bygone era with its antique furniture and dimly lit hallways. As we stepped inside, a faint, musty scent lingered in the air, the kind that clings to places that have seen decades pass. The lobby was quiet, almost too quiet, with only the soft hum of a ceiling fan breaking the silence. My sister and I approached the front desk, ready to check in. The receptionist greeted us with a polite smile. After registration, they handed us the key. Our assigned room was at the very end of the hallway, facing the emergency exit. The corridor stretched out in eerie silence, the dim bulbs overhead casting long, flickering shadows against the walls. As we walked, the faint scent of dust and something else, something stale, almost sour, grew stronger. The moment I pushed the door open, a thick, stagnant air hit me in the face, as if this space had been sealed away for decades. Heavy dust swirled in the air like a dense mist, curling into my lungs. My sister and I froze at the doorway, staring at the unsettling scene before us. The room felt as though it had been forgotten by time. The furniture remained neatly arranged, yet there was a strange, indifferent neglect in the details. The bedspread was laid out smoothly, but its color had dulled, and the fabric was stiff and brittle, as if time had drained all life from it. At the corners of the room, the wallpaper had begun to peel away, revealing an older, darker layer beneath, like shadowy flesh beneath decaying skin. Near the door, a chain lock hung uselessly, snapped in half. Its broken end swayed ever so slightly, as if something had disturbed it just moments before. I instinctively reached for the light switch and flipped it. Nothing happened. The soft glow from the hallway still poured in through the open door, but inside, the room remained shrouded in an unnatural dimness. The wooden floor creaked beneath our feet. Some planks were slightly warped, their edges curling upward, jagged and uneven. Perhaps from moisture, I reasoned, or maybe just age. But there was something eerie about the way they lifted, like fingers curling up from beneath the floorboards. Beside the bed, a narrow curtain caught my attention. Barely 10 inches wide, yet extending from the ceiling to the floor, it clung to the wall unnaturally, or at least nothing that should require a curtain. It made no sense. A pointless strip of fabric, perfectly straight, hiding something I didn't have the courage to uncover. I turned toward the bathroom, flipping the switch. This time, the light flickered to life, casting a weak glow over the tiled floor. The mirror above the sink was covered in smudges, fingerprints. They overlapped in chaotic patterns, pressing against the glass in frantic desperation. Only fingertips, no palms, just the tips of fingers, as if countless hands had reached out, searching, pleading. A chill crept up my spine. Then my sister gasped. I rushed back into the room, following her wide-eyed stare. The shower's glass panel, separating the bathtub from the rest of the bathroom, was the same, completely covered in fingerprints, hundreds of them, scattered in every direction. The air in the room had changed. It pressed down on us, thick and suffocating. The walls felt closer, the silence heavier. I could hear my own heartbeat, steady but loud, too loud in the emptiness of that room. Something was wrong. I grabbed the phone and called the front desk, keeping my voice calm as I requested a different room. The receptionist assured us someone would be sent up to inspect the situation and asked us to wait inside. We didn't sit. We didn't touch anything. Instead, we stood by the open door, letting the dim hallway light spill into the room. It should have felt safer. It didn't. A large window stretched across one side of the room, its sheer curtains billowing slightly despite the still air. The late afternoon sun cast a pale glow across the furniture, but there was no warmth. The light illuminated the space, but it did not chase away the unease. It only made the shadows clearer. Minutes passed. Then, half an hour. No one came. Despite the open door, the hallway remained eerily silent. No footsteps. No distant sounds of other guests. It felt as though the entire hotel had emptied, leaving us alone in this stagnant space. The weight in the air grew heavier, a suffocating presence pressing against my chest. My sister and I exchanged a glance, wordless but full of understanding. Without hesitation, we stepped out of the room and stood in the hallway instead. At last, a staff member arrived. We led them inside, pointing out everything: the broken lock, the fingerprints, the light switch that hadn't worked. The staff member listened, nodding. Then, casually, they reached for the switch and flicked it on. The room lit up immediately. No hesitation, no flickering. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then the staff member offered a sincere apology and handed us a key to a different room. But as we stepped into the hallway, I heard them mutter under their breath. This room was already removed from the system. Why was it even assigned? I turned, but they had already shut the door behind us. The rest of our trip passed uneventfully. But even after returning home, that room lingered in my mind. We told our friends and family about it, sharing the story over dinners and late-night conversations. The most common question was, "Did you take any pictures?" I always smiled, shaking my head. "I forgot," I would say. But I hadn't forgotten. Standing in that room, surrounded by the weight of something unseen, I knew. I didn't want its image on my phone. I didn't want to take anything from that place with me. Traveling with my boyfriend was supposed to be an adventure, a journey filled with unforgettable experiences. We had planned everything carefully, down to the last detail, but fate had other ideas. That evening, we were meant to catch a train to our next destination, but despite our best efforts, we arrived at the station just moments too late. The train had already departed, leaving us stranded for the night. Frustrated, but left with no choice, we decided to find a budget hotel and wait for the early morning train. We walked through the dimly lit streets, dragging our luggage behind us, checking one place after another. Most hotels were either fully booked or too expensive for a single night's stay. After what felt like an eternity, we stumbled upon a small, tucked-away hotel at the end of a quiet alley. Its neon sign flickered weakly, as though struggling to stay alive. The building itself looked aged, almost forgotten by time, with peeling paint and a worn-out exterior. The hotel we found was tucked away on a quiet street. From the outside, it looked old, almost forgotten. And the lobby was eerily silent, as if the building itself had been abandoned long ago. The receptionist barely acknowledged us as we checked in, handing over a single key without a word. There were no other guests in sight. Our room was small, but tidy. The bed was just big enough for two, though the sheets felt stiff and unused. Despite the cleanliness, there was a lingering musty smell, faint, like damp fabric left to mold in the dark. I wrinkled my nose but said nothing. It was just for one night. We took quick showers, had a small chat about our plans for the next day, and turned off the lights. The train was early, and we needed rest. Lying in bed, I felt my body relax under the covers. I had always been sensitive to heat, often opting for short sleeves and shorts, even in the early days of fall. But tonight was different. A creeping coldness wrapped around me, seeping into my skin. My arms broke out in goosebumps, and my body began to shake involuntarily. I curled closer to my boyfriend, seeking warmth, but the chill only deepened. My jacket was draped over the chair by the door, but something inside me screamed not to open my eyes, not to move. Then I heard it. A sound so faint, yet so distinct, like soft footsteps brushing against the worn carpet. Slow, deliberate, moving just beyond the bed. My heart pounded against my ribs as the noise drifted closer. A soft rustling of fabric scraped against the edge of the bed, as if someone, no, something, was brushing past. My face tingled. My hands itched, but I dared not move, afraid of what I might touch in the darkness. The presence did not stay still. It moved with agonizing slowness, circling the room, from the bed to the door, from the door to the chair. A steady, shuffling sound, like someone dragging their feet just barely above the floor. The weight of the silence pressed down on me, each second stretching into eternity. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, that it was all in my mind, but deep down, I knew better. I clenched my eyes shut and held my breath, counting the minutes, waiting for the sensation to fade, but it didn't. An hour passed, maybe more. The air around me felt heavy, suffocating, as if something unseen was pressing down on my chest. My body trembled, my hands curled into fists beneath the covers. I couldn't take it anymore. The fear swelled inside me until it became unbearable, and before I could stop myself, a quiet sob escaped my lips. The moment the sound broke through the silence, my boyfriend stirred beside me. I felt him shift and heard the concern in his movements. He whispered something, asking why I was crying, but I couldn't answer. I was too afraid, too consumed by the overwhelming terror that still clung to me. We had an unspoken rule. If we ever sensed something supernatural, we would never discuss it aloud. Speaking of it might pull both of us into the same fear. I couldn't risk it. Instead, I clutched his hand and silently pleaded for him to understand. We had to leave. He said nothing. He didn't ask questions. He simply got up, gathered our belongings, and helped me to my feet. At 3 a.m., we walked out of that cursed room, out of that lifeless hotel, without looking back. The moment we stepped outside, the chill faded, as if whatever had been lurking inside refused to follow us beyond the threshold. We made our way to the train station and slept in the car, parked beneath the dull glow of the streetlights. My boyfriend never asked what had happened. He only held my hand tightly, his warmth finally chasing away the lingering cold. To this day, I do not know what walked in that room with us, and I never want to find out.